Hi everyone, Janie here with Distress Ink Techniques Part 4, and this is the last video in the series, so I hope you have watched the first 3 parts, and if not, please go back and watch them because there are so many techniques with distress inks, and I know I haven't hit on all of them, but I tried to give you a good example of what you can do. And right now, let's head on over to the craft table and see what technique I have for you this week. The technique I'm going to show you today isn't as messy as some of them that we have done in previous episodes. So what you're going to need is an embossing folder and whatever embossing machine you use. I have a Cuttlebug here. Distress ink, of course, and for the one I'm doing today, I'm going to be using weathered wood. It's kind of a bluish color, kind of almost a cloudy day color. And you do not need a brayer, but if you have a brayer, you might choose to use that. And of course, you're going to need a piece of cardstock. So what you do is open your embossing folder. Now, some of them, the writing is on the part that goes in and the part that sticks out is on the back. Other ones are different. So rub your fingernail across and you'll be able to see the part that's raised. The part that's raised is not the part we're going to ink today, or at least not for this technique. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to take my ink and I'm just going to rub it on my embossing folder, and don't worry, it washes right off. Like I said, if you would like to use a brayer, then you would just rub your brayer across your ink and rub your brayer across your embossing folder. Okay, so now I've got that on there. I'm going to take my piece of cardstock and put that in. Putting it in here between my 2 plates. And we're going to run it right through my Cuttlebug. All right, let's see what we've got. There you go. So it makes it look like the sky is blue and the snowflakes are white. It is just an awesome technique. Okay, I'm going to go wash off my embossing folder and I'll be right back with the next technique. Okay, for this next technique, I'm going to use a different embossing folder. This one has butterflies on it. And I'm going to use a different distress ink. This one is peacock feathers, and it's just a really bright, pretty blue. And we're going to do just the opposite this time. So now, again, you're going to feel for the raised area. And the raised area is what we're going to ink this time. So, just going to rub it on. I don't know if you could see that maybe you could see it better there. We just want to get it all over the raised area. Okay, putting our cardstock in. Cover that up. All right. Now what this is going to do, and I'll turn it over so you can see, this is actually debossing instead of embossing. So my arm is in your way here, sorry. So instead of the area that's colored being raised up, it's actually dented in. And so just in this instance, the butterflies are colored. We could have done that with the snowflakes. But either way, both of those techniques are quite fun and very easy to do. And I'm going to be back with one more. But first, I'm going to go wash my embossing folder because I am one of those people that always has to wash her embossing folders and her stamps and anything that she inks. So I'll be right back. Okay, I have a different embossing folder this time. Piece of cardstock. This time I'm using Seedless Preserves, which is a purplish color. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to emboss this piece of cardstock. And let me run it through here. Whoops, I don't have it on the table. It's on my craft mat, so it's sliding all over the place. Okay, but we got it done. All right, so you are going to use the side that is embossed. So that's the raised side. And you can use a blending tool or a brayer. And on this one, I think we're going to use the brayer. Just because the sponge sometimes gets down in the areas you don't want it. So let's see how this works with the brayer. Just roll it right along. And there you go. It just inks up that raised area for a really beautiful effect. Gorgeous for, you know, the background piece, you know, of a card, or I want to get more on there. There we go. But it's just a beautiful effect. So you've seen 3 different ways. You've seen this one where we ink the raised area after it's been embossed. We have this one where we inked the background while embossing it. And this one where we inked the debossed area. And all 3 of those are absolutely gorgeous and fun to use. So experiment and see what you come up with. Now I'm going to share one of my favorite things about distress inks. I don't know about you, but there are times I want to make a card and I don't have all of the components that match. But with distress inks, I can actually create things that match. So let me show you. I'm going to be using my blending tool, and I'm going to be using Milled Lavender Distress ink. I'm going to start off with this white flower. I'm sure you have prettier white flowers than this, but this is the one I'm going to use. And I'm just going to ink up my blending tool here. And I'm just going to tap it over the flower. And then I'm going to ink it up a little bit more, and I'm going to go around the edges a little bit. And you can do this any way you want. This is just the way I'm choosing to do this today, just for the effect that I want. And there you go. Pretty lavender flower. We put it up against something white here so you can maybe see it a little bit better. Okay, now I have my flower, but I need my ribbon to match. And it's so hard to find ribbon that is just the right color. So this is what I do. Ink this up again. And I'm just going to tap it across just like I did on the flower. You know, getting the color on there evenly. Ink it up. Get a little bit more on there. Maybe rub it in a little bit gently here. Turn this around. There we go. Now I have, there we go, dropping it. There we have a lavender ribbon that matches the flower. So just let me set these here so that you can see them together. And they're a perfect match. There's no guessing. There's no, oh, well, it almost matches. It actually matches. And if you need to color up some cardstock to match it, There are so many different techniques with the distress ink that you can use to color your cardstock. And I've shown some of those techniques in the earlier episodes of this series. But I thought I would just do a little right now for you. You start off the cardstock and work your way gently onto it. I like to use a nice circular motion with it. I'm going to come down here, and I'm also going to do some tapping down here so you can kind of see what I did on the ribbon and on the flower, so that it's, the only problem is it kind of shows up the square. And that's the reason for actually doing the circular motions and starting off the edges. So you can see the difference in that one end. You can see what the shape is of the blending tool, and on the other end it is a smoother effect. It still has kind of a textured or marbled look to it, and you can keep going at it and smooth it out. But there you go. Now all the components that I need match. Isn't that just awesome? And of course you can do that with any color you want and any of the colors that you have. But it makes life easier when you're trying to match things up and you just don't have the things that match. And I'm pretty sure you can find other things to color with distress inks on your cards as well. Things that I haven't showed you here. Just experiment and see what happens. But I love this technique because it just brings everything together. What I'm going to show you next, I am sure you already know, but we're going to use distress ink and a stencil. And I'm using one of these little dabbers. You could actually still use the blending tool or whatever, but I like this and thought I'd try something different this time. So get it all inked up, and just gonna go over this here real quick. I'm using Festive Berries. It's, I think, the brightest red one I have. I thought was just perfect for doing these hearts. Okay, there we go. And it works beautifully with your stencils. I will be right back. In part one of distress ink techniques, I showed you how to tear the paper and ink it to give it a burned look or a vintage look. And I really should have showed you some other techniques involving edging. So one of the things I want to show you is using that exact same technique. You could also make grass or hills or whatever you want. I tore this and inked it as well to give it that dimensional look. Today we're going to be looking at other inking techniques, though, that include inking the edges of things. Like, see if you could see this tag. Let me put it up against something white here. So inking the edges of this, actually it's a label, not a tag. Or inking the edges of this card. I'm not sure how well it shows up in this video, but it just gives it some depth. And that's what we're going to look at today. So the first one is, I just showed you the stenciling on this, and now I'm going to use my same little dauber and the same ink, and I'm just going to go around the edges. See if I can be on camera doing this. And if you're not careful and you're like me and you just looked over at the camera, I got a little ink right on there. And for a lot of my techniques, that doesn't matter. For this one, I was hoping to not do that. So I need to focus on what I'm doing and not looking at what's on the screen. Okay, so a lot of times, you know, we'll put a piece of cardstock behind what we're doing to give it that matted look. And this also does the same thing. It has the same effect. So let me put it up against there. So you get that same look without having to put another piece of cardstock behind it. Save some time, save some cardstock sometimes. So that's one way. Another way I'm going to show you, I'm going to be using this edge distressor, which is from Close to My Heart. But I've heard you can do the same technique with scissors, so I tried it. But what I'm going to do is just distress the edge and not tear it like I did in, my part 1 video. This just gives it like a little ragged edge. And I'm going to try it with scissors. I actually tried it a little bit earlier. It's not as easy. But if you don't have a distressing tool, it could work. But I prefer the distressing tool. So I'll just distress a couple edges here. And then I'm going to grab my all-time favorite here, which is Vintage Photo. It's really great for anything that's distressed or that you want to give that vintage look to. So that's what I'm going to use this time. So not quite the same look as when you tear it like I did with the first one, but it still gives it a really awesome effect. So you can see the differences here, but it's still, can still be that little vintage look or shabby chic look. So that is the rest of my edging techniques that should have been in the first video. This last technique I'm going to show you is wax paper resist technique. And the reason I'm going to show it to you is because Distress inks work on glossy cardstock, and I wanted you to see that. I already have a video out on the wax paper resist technique, so I'm not going to go into a lot of depth on this. So what you're going to need is a piece of glossy cardstock, wax paper, obviously your distress inks, and in this case I'm using Broken China. It's a pretty blue that I really like. A craft mat or parchment paper, something that can handle the heat. Your iron set at a higher temperature, but all this information actually is in the other video, and I will leave the link below in the description box for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some wax paper and I'm just going to crumple it up really good and then open it back up. I'm going to lay it across the glossy cardstock, and then to protect my iron, I'm going to lay a piece of parchment paper over it. I've seen people use just printer paper. And then we're going to iron it for approximately 30 seconds. So I'm going to count here and it's going to be real quiet. Doesn't it drive you crazy when it's quiet? You guys probably could have just fast forwarded through this part. Another way of doing it, you'll see in my video, is you can actually put two pieces of cardstock together, kind of sandwiching it, and you get two things done at one time. All right, I'm going to lift the wax paper off, and it's really not going to show up good, but I'm going to go ahead and see if you could kind of see the design on there a little bit. And before I show you that, I am going to show you something else. This was done on regular cardstock, and the wax paper had been put through an embossing folder, giving it that design. And the reason I'm showing you this is a lot of people say the wax paper technique does not work on regular cardstock, but it does. All right, so I'm going to move the iron out of the way. Oops, but not this. Okay. And now I'm going to take the Distress ink up my blending tool, and I'm just going to start rubbing it on here. And you can see the ink does not stick to where the wax paper was. Isn't that awesome? And also, so that you can see that this does work on glossy cardstock, which was actually the purpose of showing you this technique. So there you go. It's beautiful and it works. So I hope that gives you some ideas of things that you can do with Distress ink and the different materials that it'll work on. And don't forget the link for the wax paper resist technique. If you want to see all the details on it, it is posted below. The link is posted below in the description area. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have enjoyed the series on Distress ink techniques. I would love to see what you come up with, because I'm sure you'll come up with some techniques of your own. So please share them with me. Please leave comments and questions below. And just thank you so much for watching, and happy crafting. Bye-bye.